Okay, hello everyone. I'm Apocalypse the Geek Guru, and today I'm going to be talking about Moon Knight, show that just came out on Disney Plus. It's Marvel's new show with their new character. Well, not new characters, they're Marvel's new show. So anyway, I'm just kind of get right into it. First up by saying that I was gonna do a review of the trailer, but I literally just kind of forgot about this show. Uh, I've been catching up on like games and stuff like Guardians of the Galaxy and there was Halo, the whole Halo thing. So I just kind of forgot that this show even existed. And then then I saw something yesterday about how like it's coming out tomorrow, and I was like, oh, I guess I'll check it out. I like Marvel, you know. So, but I know next to nothing about Moon Knight. I knew that he had something to do with Egyptian gods or some stuff. Like that's it. That's the extent of my knowledge of Moon Knight. Which, after watching the show, I still know next to nothing about Moon Knight. This first episode, which is kind of bad. I'm sure they'll get way more into it later on. But so anyway, I, this is a character I know nothing about. So let me just get right into this episode. Now it starts off really weird. You see this guy. He takes a glass of water, drinks it, and then he puts it in like a napkin or whatever, and then crushes it. And then he like takes those pieces and like puts it in his slippers, and then puts his slippers on and starts walking off, like the crushed glass in his slippers, which was really weird and never comes up again throughout the rest of the episode. I don't know, like, like I don't know why they did that. It is weird. Like, I don't maybe that's something from the comics. Like I said, I don't know anything about Moon Knight or anything. So it's like, does anybody know? Is that something that like does that come up in the comics? The guy who I don't even know if they say his name. He's played by Ethan Hawke. He's kind of like the bad guy of the series, I guess. And I don't remember if they even say his name, but yeah, he's got like a cane with alligators and stuff on it, which I think has something to do with the Egyptian god that he worships or whatever. We'll get a bit more into it. So after that, it cuts to Oscar Isaacs, who in here's named Stephen Grant. That's the character that he's playing. And for some reason, he's tied to his bed. Like, he's got like an ankle thing on his ankle. And he's, tied to his bed. I guess he sleepwalks. He sleepwalks. He sleepwalks a lot, I guess. So and the thing is though, he can just take it off. Like it's not like it's any sort of like special thing. He doesn't need anybody else to come and help. He can just take it off. So it's like, what's the point of that? If you can just like, if you're gonna tie yourself to something, like strap yourself down to something, the point is that you don't want to easily be able to just get out like he does. He literally just takes it off. Like, what's the point of that? If you're whatever. So anyway, and he's got all this sand and stuff around his bed to tell, like, if he's walked through it, like if he's, seen. And he just goes around and, feeding his fish. And he's talking to somebody on the phone. I don't know. I just kind of realized this later on in the episode. I don't know who he's talking to. Uh, and the reason that it's kind of interesting that he's talking to somebody is because the show kind of establishes that he's kind of a loser. Like you know, he works at the museum. He lives in London, by the way, and he he works at the museum, and he knows a lot about Egypt and stuff. Like he works at the Egyptian museum. So anyway, but he's not like a tour guide. Like he just works at the gift shop, and his boss is like really rude to him and says something like, "Oh, you're useless" and stuff. And when I was watching this, like just the way she talks to him, I was just like, I I've hardly worked in like retail and like jobs and stuff. I've had very few, but you're like that is not how people like talk to each other in the workplace. At least in my experience, like she was just completely unprofessional. It was weird, but she's not an important part of the show, so I guess it doesn't really matter. I guess they just had to have him get talked down to, I guess, and really drive home that he's kind of a loser. His clothes, like I said, I'm not. And again, is he that way in the comics? Does anybody know? Like, is he really just like? I don't like. That's the only way I can describe it. He's a loser. His clothes are like always like disheveled. His hair is always like like messed up and stuff. Like, I mean, I'm not like you know a superstar, or super popular or anything, but like he's just kind of like lame. He's late for work and all this. But the thing is, though, he oddly enough, like really weirdly enough, it just kind of comes out of left field. This very attractive woman at his job is just like, "Hey, so are we still on for for Friday night? We're gonna have steaks and stuff." And he's just like, yeah, what? Or like, are you asking me out? And she's just like, oh, you're funny. So here's the thing. Like I said, he keeps sort of like blacking out, like every night at night and stuff. Like he keeps blacking out. So apparently he's doing stuff, like going around talking to people, like and doing stuff without his knowledge. Yeah, he's just basically the first couple minutes, like 10 minutes or so, 15 minutes or whatever. Honestly, it's more like the first 30, 45 minutes of the episode, which the episode's only 45 minutes. Is they establish that he's a loser and he's way out of his element and like just doesn't know what's going on. So I was able to relate to the show very highly. So anyway, he goes back home. Does his work, and then he goes back home, and he it's before he goes home though. He's sitting there and he's talking to somebody about the girl and like about what's going on. He's eating like a burrito or something, and it it's just showing him at first, and then it like the camera turns and he's talking to one of those statue guys. Like, let me show you. He's talking to one of these like statue guys, like those guys that go out and dress up like statues. He's just sitting there unloading on this dude, like all of his problems, all of his things, like, and this guy just sits there the whole time. I expected him to be like, dude, you need to get a life, like, dude, go away, like, come on. But he keeps giving him money and stuff too. So I mean, I guess that's all right. But it's like this is how pathetic he is. He's got to go talk to a statue just to which makes me wonder who's he talking to on the phone. Is it his parents, his mom, or whatever? I don't know. It's never explained. I don't know if it'll come up. But yeah, he's so lame. He's got to go talk to a statue. Like, and the guy doesn't move. He sits there like that the entire time. Just doesn't move. Doesn't say anything. And it's funny because the dude is just like, when he leaves, he's just like, all right, I'll see you later. When Oscar Isaac's character leaves, he's like, all right, I'll see you later. Like, see you next time. And I'm just like, how many times does he go? That poor statue dude. He's got to sit there and listen to this guy's problems and can't give any advice because it would break his whole thing. Oh, buddy. So he goes home. And his whole night routine is just, setting up the sand around the thing. He puts a piece of tape over his door so he can tell, like, whether or not it's been opened. Which, it's like, dude, you can just take the tape off and replace it again. Like, whoever's leaving, they can just take it off and, basically the point I'm trying to make is that his ways of setting up, of, like, determining and trying to stop him leaving, and telling whether or not he's left, they're easily replaceable. Like, like there's no real way for him to know because, like, his sleepwalking self, which we'll get into more, he's not, little spoiler alert for earlier ahead, he's not actually sleepwalking. There's literally, like, another consciousness in his head named Mark for some reason. So he's essentially, like... So all of his ways that he's trying to, like, stop himself from leaving, trying to stop determine whether or not he's left, they're easily replaceable. Like they're not they can't they're not gonna work. So I thought that was silly. So essentially, he's just trying to sit there and stay awake. He's doing a Rubik's cube. He's reading about Egyptian gods. Which is interesting. Like that's what he does. That's what he spends. He reads. Spends all his time reading about Egypt and history and stuff like that. And literally, while he's just sitting there in bed doing a Rubik's cube. And then it just cuts. It quickly cuts to like now he's laying in a field. And it's like, he wakes up and his jaw is just like dislocated. Like, oh man. His jaw is just like all messed up. He's like, what the hell? Like, where am I? And there's all this broken glass around him. He looks up and there's like a broken window and he sees some guy. And it's kind of a funny scene where he sees this guy like up in this, looking at this, because apparently he must have jumped out this window and landed there. And now there's this guy looking down at him and he's just like, hey, what's... And the guy waves back down to him like, hello. And then another guy pops up with a gun and he's like, what are you doing? And they start shooting at him. I thought it was just really, I thought that was a really funny scene. It's like, he obviously just like attacked this place or whatever, his other, like his other consciousness, Mark, just attacked this place. And he just goes and waves for one of the dudes, and one of the dudes is like, hey. And then the other, like, I just thought that was a pretty funny scene. The guy's like, what are you doing waving at the enemy? Shoot him. I thought that was hilarious. And so he starts hearing this voice in his head who's just like, oh, where's Mark? The idiot's back in control. Which keeps happening because, like, this is where the show kind of starts to pick up. Because he's, he reaches in his pocket and he's got this, like, golden scarab thing. And we see behind him for a second, like, this thing. And, then he turns around and there's nothing there. And this this is the part I'm talking about. Where he's just like, hey. And then I'm going to have to pause it every now and then, like, a lot, so hope I don't get copyrighted. And the guy's just like, hey, what's up? And then it's like, what are you doing? Shoot him! No. So yeah, I thought that that was pretty funny. And then he just starts running, and he keeps hearing this voice like, "Oh, Mark's not in control. It's the idiot." He's running from these guys, and he runs into town. And there's still guys all over the town with guns, looking for him. And he just sort of like runs into the crowd, and this crowd are all like meeting up in the town square or whatever. And that's when we see Ethan Hawke again. Did I mention? Yeah, it's Ethan Hawke's character with the glass in his slippers, which again doesn't come up. Like he's, I don't even think we can hear like the crunch of the. Again, I don't know what that opening scene was all about. Is it from the comics? Does anybody know? I don't know. So anyway, Ethan Hawke, he comes up and he's just like, hey, everybody come up to be judged. And, they take his, he's like, put your hands in mine, And he takes his cane and whatever and like rests it on their hands. And he takes his hand and he's got his cane in his hand. And he's just like moving it back and forth and stuff. Honestly, I think my cane's a lot cooler than his, with his just little two-headed alligator thing. But he's just like moving his hand back and forth as like some sort of scale, I just thought it looked like the cheapest way that they could have possibly done that. Just seriously. And I actually just noticed that for a Marvel TV show, especially for like the first episode, there was very little, like next to none, special effects or anything like that. Which, it's not a problem. I'm not like, oh, there weren't enough explosions. There weren't enough, just flying around doing all this stuff, But, it dealt more with, like, the character like character and what's going on with the character, and I really like that. So anyway, he's doing this thing, and he's got this tattoo of like scales on his arm, and while he's doing that whole thing, and it's almost like they tried to make it like to show it to where you can't see that he's literally just like moving it back and forth, and they tried to make it seem like the cane is doing that like on its own, you know. It was just really funny. But like his tattoo of the scales, that like starts like moving and like going up and down. Essentially, he's judging like whether or not these people are good or not. Whether or not these people are good or not, whatever. So, and because apparently the Egyptian god that they worship can see your entire life. Your past, your present, your future, and whether what you're gonna do and whether or not you're gonna be a good person. So this first guy, he's like, oh, this is a good person, this good guy. And then this old lady comes up, and she does, the scales turn red, and he's like, oh, I'm sorry, but you're bad. And she's just like, but I've done good all my life. And he's just like, well, maybe it's something you're gonna do. And then she just dies. She just dies right there. And then and then he's just like, all right, yeah, everybody, we did, this is a great thing. Typical cult shit. So, the guards and stuff, the guys with guns, they walk up to him and they're like, hey, someone broke into our thing and he, took out two of our guys. And he's, this is probably the funniest scene in the whole episode. He looks over and he just says something in, I'll show you. He looks over and he just sort of says something in like, I don't know, Egyptian, and and everybody except him kneels, and he literally goes, "Oh bollocks," and sits down and kneels down. I just love it. He's like, "Oh bollocks." So obviously they're like, you there, come up. And he's like, give me the scarab. Like, do you have the scarab? And Stephen Grant, he's just like, what, the scarab? Yeah. Here's the scarab. Here, take it. And Ethan Hawke goes to grab it, and it's just his hand, and Stephen's hand goes, like, closes over it. And he's just like, I'm not doing that, And he keeps trying. He's like, let me, here, take it. And it does the same thing again. And he goes to grab it, and his hand goes way back like here. And he's like, I'm sorry, I'm not doing this. I'm trying to stop. And he's like, here, take it. It's pretty funny. Because again, he's not in complete control of his body. This is where we sort of like start to learn there's another consciousness within his mind and body or whatever. He shares a body with someone else, essentially. And this guy, whoever else in it, Mark, is like, no, you can't give him the scarab. Don't give him the scarab. Basically. It doesn't say that, but this is, that's what it's doing. So everybody, the crowd and stuff start, taking him away. And then it cuts. Like, I'm going to show you in a second. Let me get to it. And, watch. They're all like, grabbing at him, taking him, and they get the scarab. And then it just, like, he blacks out, and it cuts to that. And you see he's, like, all bloody and stuff. Like, he just, and he's just like, what the hell? He's got the scarab back in his hand and stuff. They're all taken out. Holy crap. And, part of me really wanted to see, like, what happened in these scenes. But it's actually a lot better that we don't get to see what happened, because it helps set up his character, Stephen's character, and the fact that he has no idea what's going on. And again, like I said, when I was watching this, I was like, I don't know what's going on. He doesn't know what's going on. So it was real. I was capable of seeing myself in him. So he starts running. He, comes back to it. He's just like, I'm sorry, I'm gonna go. He starts running off, and people cut him off. And he hops in a nice, not an ice cream truck, a cupcake truck, and makes that's what he's gonna make his getaway in. And then it shows him driving away. And for a second, I was like, did he really just get away in a cupcake van? Like they don't have any other cars in that town. What the hell? But then, yeah, cars come up and they catch him, and it actually has a really cool, it's actually a pretty cool scene because he's. It's also totally unbelievable because he's like speeding. It's one of those winding roads in like the mountains and stuff, that are constantly doing this that you see in like James Bond movies and stuff like that. And he's like driving a cupcake van. He's got to be going maybe like 50, 60 miles an hour. And he's taking these turns, and it's like, dude, who are you? Like, what? Like, what the? What are you, the transporter? He's driving around, taking these turns going like 50 miles an hour in a cupcake van. Like, dude, you work at the museum. You're not even a tour guide at the museum. You work at the gift shop. How are you driving this well? Now, that being said, as I was saying that, I just kind of thought, okay, maybe he's not. Maybe Mark is taking sort of a little bit of control. So we see he keeps sort of blacking out. Well, every time the guys get close to him, because the guy jumps and makes it into the van, and he's like, another car comes up and they're about to shoot him, and then he just kind of blacks out, and all of a sudden now he's like, the windshield's blown out, the car's gone, the guy is in the back dead, and he's holding a gun. He's like, oh, what the hell? And then like same thing happens again. Two cars come up alongside of him, and they're both about to shoot him, and then he just kind of blacks out, and then when he comes to, he's going in reverse at like 40 miles an hour. The windshield's blown out. He's still got the gun. And it's funny. He sees the car and he throws the gun at the car. And the voice in his head is like, did he just throw the gun? Like, this show's a lot better than I expected it to be. It's really interesting to see, like, just what he's doing, like his character and everything. I think it's really well done how he, like, the blackouts and stuff. So anyway, his car breaks down, and then the two guys, there's two guys left, and they get out of their car, and they're about to shoot him, and then a bunch of logs come down because he'd like accidentally caused a logging truck to like move, like tip over, and all the logs came down. So they start spilling down. They take the two guys out, and they start coming onto the truck and stuff. And he's like, ah, and then boom, he snaps to, and he's back at his house. And for a second, it's like, was that a dream? But it's like, no, that was not. That was definitely not a dream. That definitely happened. So he wakes up and he's just like, all right, yeah, whew, wow, that was a crazy dream. And I forgot to mention that he has this goldfish at the very beginning of the episode when he's first waking up. He's feeding his goldfish, and it only has like one fin. Like it's like Nemo from Finding Nemo or whatever. So it's only got like one fin. And then when he wakes up here, he wakes up and he's like, all right, he looks over at his fish and he's like, what do you dream about? I wonder. And then he, goes back to, it's when he goes back to eating his cereal or oatmeal or whatever. And then he slowly looks over and his fish has two fins now, which is really weird, but also doesn't really come up in the episode. It's just like this weird thing that he's like, he takes it to the fish store and he's just like, hey, what's up with this fish? It's supposed to only have one thing, did it grow back? Is that normal? And the lady at the fish store is just like, we don't sell fishes with, fish with one thing, this and that. It's like, you were in here yesterday saying the same thing. And he's just like, what, yesterday? What are you talking about? And it's funny because he looks at the clock and he's like, is that clock right? That can't be right. And the woman at the fish store is just like, she says something like, the fish isn't right. The clock isn't right. There's something wrong with you. I love that. That was a really funny line. So he's like, oh my God, I got a date, because he looks at the clock. He's like, oh God, I got a date. And he starts getting ready, and he goes to the steakhouse or whatever, and he's sitting there, and he calls the girl, and he's like, hey, steak night, here to have steaks. And she's like, oh, you got some nerve calling me now. It's Sunday. And he's just like, what? She's like, yeah, it's Sunday, lose my number. And, which, I mean, it's not really important for the show, but it's kind of messed up. Like, come on, one day, you don't know what happened to him. Could be anything. He literally got blacked out and got stuck in the Alps. Like, a story no one would ever believe, but come on, you could at least give him the benefit of the doubt. But anyway, so he's just like, what do you mean it's Sunday? Like, the last he knew, it was Thursday. He's missed, like, two whole days, at least. So he leaves and he's walking back, and it's funny again. He's on the phone with someone, and I'm thinking like it must be his mom or something. And the only reason that I think it's like weird that he's like talking to someone on the phone is because the show makes it very clear that like he doesn't have any friends. He doesn't really go out and do anything. So I'm just like, who's he? It sounded like he was talking to his mom because he was like, oh, he was literally like, if he was, he was lying his ass off because he was like, oh yeah, we had a great time. She loved the flowers. Basically telling his mom like, oh yeah, she showed up for the date. We had a great time. But so yeah, he goes back home and he starts eating the chocolates that he had gotten for her. Well, she got like chocolates and flowers and stuff, whatever. And he drops them and he sees that there's this table that has like all these scratch marks and stuff. So it's like it's been moved on the ground. It's like he's like, what? Why is this? I'm not moving this. So he moves it over to where like it's gonna be, and he sees that there's like a broken board or whatever in his the wall of the wall. So he goes up, and in that little thing, he finds like a cell phone and like a key card or whatever, and the cell phone has like all these missed calls from someone called Layla. So he's like, who the hell? And he's about to call, and he's about to press like call, and the moment he does, Layla starts calling him, and he's like, hello, who is this? And she's just like, hey, where have you been? It's been months. I've been trying to call you, and he's just like, well, who do you think I am? Like, I just found this phone in my apartment. He actually says flat, but I'm an American, so I say apartment. So anyway, he's just like, who do you think I am? He's like, well, what do you mean, who do you think you are? And what's with that accent? Cause like I said, he's from London, so he has a British accent. And he's just like, I just found this thing in my apartment. And then she hangs up, and he's just like, what the hell? So she hangs up, and then he starts hearing someone like calling his name, like Steven. And he like follows it, and he goes into his bathroom, and which it looks like his bathroom doesn't even have like a door on it. It's just like this sliding thing. Whatever. I focus on the wrong shit, I think. But anyway, you see like in his mirror, like his head just kind of shakes. He's like, what the hell? So, and all of the lights and stuff in his apartment start going, or flat, whatever, start flickering and going off. And he's like, what the hell? And he runs out, and he runs into the elevator, and he keeps trying to push like the button and stuff. And that's when he sees that big mummy thing. I think it's, again, I don't know anything about Moon Knight, but it's very well possible that it's one of the Egyptian gods that gives Moon Knight his powers. And which I do know that he gets his powers from, I think that I know that he gets his powers from like an Egyptian god or one of them or them. And so I think that's might be what we're seeing. And it's he can't get to like whatever floor he's trying to get to the ground floor, and it's like it keeps going like to 3 to 2, it keeps opening up, and then this lady like gets on the elevator, and it's kind of funny because like he sees the big like creepy thing walking towards him, and as soon as it gets into the like as soon as it comes into the elevator, it turns into like an old lady, and he's just like crumpled. This scene was it was in the trailer as well. Like she walks in and he's just like crumpled up on the floor like this, like, and he's just like, "Hey, I lost my contact lens," you know. And the elevator doors open and they're back on the fifth floor. He's just like, "What? We're back on the fifth floor?" So apparently like something's going on, something mystical and magical. And the old lady freaks out. And next thing you know, he snaps to and he's on a bus now. Like in the middle of the day. It was like at night. And now it's cut to the bus. And he keeps seeing this like, mummy Egyptian bird thing. Oh, it's a bird. Is it Horus? I don't know. Doesn't matter. But anyway, so he gets off the bus and he sees Ethan Hawke. And he's like, "What are you doing here?" And I'm just kidding. He sees Ethan Hawke on the bus as he's getting off. And he's just like, "Holy shit." Like, "Oh my God." Like, he's real. Like, because he thought that whole thing was a dream. And he walks in and he tries to tell the security guard, like, "Hey, look out for somebody sketchy, look out." And his boss comes up to him and tries to tell him something or whatever. And he sees someone from the bus, like, walking around. And he starts to follow him. And then all of a sudden, Ethan Hawke, like, comes out of nowhere. And he's like, "Hey." And he's like, "Hey." He's like, "Hey, you're..." Because when they catch him in the Alps, and he's, right before he's like, he can't give him the scarab. He tells him like, "My name's Stephen Grant," So they track him down, and he's like, "Oh, you really do work here. I thought Stephen Grant would have been an alias." And it's funny. And Stephen, he turns to one of the security guards, and he's like, "Hey, Robbie or whatever, Ronnie, help me out here." And the security guard walks up, and he just lifts up his sleeve to show that he's got the same tattoo as Ethan Hawke, which again I don't know if they mentioned his name in the show, but I might have to watch it again. But so he's just like, "Oh no, Robbie," and so it's interesting to note that whoever this organization are, they've apparently infiltrated a lot of different places. So Ethan Hawke, brings him over, and he tries to, and he does the whole. He's telling them about the god that they worship, which was I think they say Ahmed, and he's basically just saying that like she was betrayed. She can see everything that everyone was gonna do. She would have been if she was free. She was betrayed by other gods and imprisoned. If she was free, she could have stopped all of this hardship that the world has seen, And he's just kind of like backing. Steven just keeps backing away from him, like, "I don't know." Like, "Yep." Oh, he's like, "Ooh, that sucks. Yeah. Ooh, betrayed. That's not good." Like, again, he's just like totally out of his element, just doesn't know what to do. So Ethan Hawke does the whole "I'm gonna judge you" thing. And I don't know what the scale says or whatever, but Ethan Hawke just looks at him and is just like, "There's chaos in you," possibly referring to the fact that he has two minds living in his body. But and they're in the middle of the museum, but it turns out that there's not just that one security guard there. There's also like random people and all that. They show so they've kind of cut him off and isolated him in this one part of the museum. But once Ethan Hawke's like, "Hey, there's chaos in you" or whatever, this door opens and like a tour group or whatever comes through, and he starts running off. And I thought he was gonna like run home and like get out of the museum, because clearly they've infiltrated the museum. Like Robbie or whatever, he's in the museum. He's a member of security. Like like Steven's enemies, the people that are after him now, they're at his job. So he runs away, but he doesn't leave the museum. It just cuts to him. Now it's at night. The museum is closing down, and he's like doing inventory. Like, he's like pricing stuff and putting it in a thing. And I was just like, dude, why are you still there? Why are you? You were freaking out in the middle of the day. Like, he was telling a security guard to, hey, watch out, watch out for people, because he was freaking like, someone's following me. And it's like, now it's the like nighttime. The museum's closed. You're like the only person there aside from the janitors. How are you not freaking out? How are you not like, why are you even there in the first place? Like, come on, dude, you need to get the hell out of there. Like, they're looking for you and they work at your job. So he starts packing up, he starts leaving. And he hears strange sounds coming from deeper into the museum. And instead of being like, no, screw this, I've had enough weird stuff, I'm leaving, he starts walking into the dark museum. And I gotta admit, I got some real Night at the Museum vibes. Like, I thought that, because he walks past like this alligator skin or whatever, and I swear I thought it was gonna like come to life and attack him. And we see he's walking through all the exhibits, and we see his reflection in the glass and stuff. And he stops and like looks at something, and then he keeps going, but his reflection stays there, and it's kind of like, what the hell? Like, looking around. Don't know how or why that would happen. Again, the show, I guess, deals with a lot of magic and stuff. I think it was really just to sort of drive home the fact that he's not the only one in there. So he starts hearing like barking and stuff, and like like it sounds like a dog, and he's just like, hey, hello, just the stupidest like horror movie stuff you can imagine. And it's weird because it looks like the thing sees him for a second, and then like it sees him and then it's like hiding and stalking from him. And I'm like, why didn't it just attack him right there? Like, it's going for it to attack him. And then he just sees like this big shadow of a thing coming around the corner, and he goes and hides. And then we hear Ethan Hawke come on the intercom, and he's like, Stephen Grant, like, give us the scarab or be torn to pieces. And it's like, dude, again, it's like, dude, they're at your work. They know where you work. And at least one of them is a security guard where you work. You're screwed. Get out of there. So he like throws his backpack, the classic, I'm going to throw something over here, and that's going to make a sound. And then they go for it, which works for a minute until he backs up into this vase and like makes a noise. And then I don't really know what the hell the thing that's chasing him is. It's like this weird sort of I don't know, like jackal monster thing, some just generic monster thing. So it sees him and he starts running, and he runs into the bathroom, and like there's all these mirrors and stuff, and he's just like, what's going on? And that's when we see his reflection, Mark, who has a different accent. He's just like, hey, like, you got to give me control. Like, and Steven's just like, this isn't real, and Mark's just sitting there in the reflection, just like, this is real. Whatever that thing is, it's about to come through this door. You've got to give me control. I can save us. He's just like, look at me. He's just like, I can save us. Give me control. And Steven's just like, okay. And then we see him sort of like, start to black out. And then we see a bit past him blacking out. And we see like these robes and things start to appear around him, like appear over him. And then as he's starting to change, the creature or whatever gets in and it like attacks him. And then we see from outside of the bathroom the like a sink or whatever comes flying out and hits the wall, and the monster comes out of the bathroom and it's like trying to get away and scraping, and it gets like thrown, and we see starts panning up, and we see Moon Knight just beating the hell out of this thing, and that's pretty much it. He punches it, knocks it out, or kills it or whatever, and then he turns around and the episode ends with us finally seeing, you know, Moon Knight as he turns around and let me show you. And like boom. And that's the end of the episode. And is there any sort of after credits thing? You never know with Marvel. But so yeah, that was Moon Knight. That was the first episode of Moon Knight. And got us, like I said at the beginning, I like it. I thought it was pretty good. I like the character, you know, I think it's going to be really interesting to see the sort of relationship between Mark and Steven and how that's going to work out and how he's just literally leading like two different lives. And, you know, so I'm cautiously optimistic, you know, we're going to see where this goes. But yeah, I really enjoyed the show. I like how it didn't, as I said, it wasn't this huge, big CGI, you know, thing. It was really more character driven, you know, figuring out like who this character is, and you know, it was a bit more grounded. I'm sure that'll be tossed out the window a bit in the next episode. When, you know, they'll probably have, you know, him doing, but Moon Knight's not like, as far as I know. Again, I don't know a whole lot about him, but he's more of like a vigilante sort of like almost like a Batman kind of dude. You know, he punches and kicks people, I think. You know, I don't know, again, I don't know what his powers are exactly. But yeah, I'm definitely interested in the show. Like I'm can't wait. I can wait for the next episode. I'm not like super like, oh man, I can't wait to see what happens next. But yeah, I thought it was pretty good, you know? It's Here's the thing though, a lot of Marvel shows, they'll start out pretty good and then they'll, you know, just peter out. So this could have, for, you know, like I said, the first episode so far, it's pretty good. I liked it, you know? A solid 6. No, honestly, I don't like to really rate stuff like that, but I'd give it an 8. Honestly, it was really good. It didn't seem to have any sort of there wasn't any sort of like identity politics or any like woke shit like that. Yeah, his boss was a woman and she berates him in about every scene that they're in together, but it's not, you know, it's only like a few, like probably less than 2 or 3 minutes, you know. So it's not that big of a deal. And he does sort of like at the end of the episode when he's trying, you know, after like when he's being chased and followed, and he comes back and he's telling the security guard, his boss kind of comes up to him and he's like, hey, you know, take these to, you know, whatever. I need you to take these boxes over to here. And he's just like, you know, she keeps trying to tell him while he's talking to the thing, and he's just like, will you just give me a second? Like, you know, so he kind of does, like, gets a bit over and, you know, or like tells her, but she still gets the last word and is like, that's why you're still on inventory tonight, you know, this, that. But that was literally it, you know. So I don't know if it's gonna get worse. I don't know if it's gonna get better. But if it stays like this, then it's a pretty good show, you know. The effects they didn't really have any effects. The only really thing they had was the Egyptian god thing or whatever. Every time I say Egyptian god, I just think of Yu-Gi-Oh. But so yeah, it's a good show. Really enjoyed it. I'll review the next episode. And I'll continue watching it. There's nothing that it's not like Halo, where the only reason I really watch that I'm gonna watch Halo is to review it and just, you know, do the review videos. But this, yeah, I'm gonna keep watching this. So there were my thoughts. You know, let me all know what you think about it. You know, if you've watched it, you know, let me know what you think. If you haven't, you know, let me know what you think about, you know, my review, my interpretation of it. If you like this episode, if you like this video, leave a like, share, subscribe. If you want to see more of this content. If you didn't like this video, thank you for watching this long, and, you know, tell me why. Tell me how you think I can do better, and, you know, the reasons that you didn't like it. That's it. I've been Apocalypse the Geek Guru. Thank you all for watching.